Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. You're watching a brand new episode of Encounter. Today, our guest has come all the way from the UK. He's a newly appointed Pro-Vice Chancellor at the Leeds Beckett University, and he's in Mauritius for, amongst many other things, but also as a keynote speaker for a graduation ceremony. He's none other than Professor David Ashton. Very warm welcome to you, and thank you for being here in the studios of the MBC.
Rushmore, an absolute delight to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, congratulations for being newly appointed as the Pro-Vice Chancellor at the Leeds Beckett University. I'm guessing you must have had quite many years in the educational sector to be what we call also the Dean of a university, right?
Yeah, so I've been working in universities for 25 years, 6 universities in the UK in my career, and as you say, just recently joined Leeds Beckett University, and absolutely delighted to have the role of Pro-Vice Chancellor.
So quickly, can you tell us why are you in Mauritius? Is it your first time?
Well, I'm here for 2 very special reasons, really. I'm visiting friends and colleagues at Rushmore Business School who are holding a graduation ceremony. We're celebrating the achievements of the students there. We're also celebrating a very special moment in Rushmore's history because under the leadership of Nitin and Priya Isu, Rushmore Business School has now achieved 20 years. So 2 reasons to celebrate.
Well, congratulations. The reason why you're here, because especially for Encounters, because we want to speak about the philosophies of education and how it is evolving. And from what I understand, you give a lot of importance to equality, inclusion, and diversity. So, I mean, it's a very wide topic. So let's start with, how do you see education evolving nowadays?
So I think there are 2 ways in which education is now evolving when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and belonging. The first is those students who are attending university. We've seen a very different trend in the UK in recent years, where more and more students from more diverse backgrounds are successful in getting places at university. And I think that also extends to international students. We are seeing more and more international students from more and more countries attending university, and British universities as well. At Leeds Beckett, we have a big increase in international student numbers. And then the second area is in terms of the education. One of the great joys and values of having a very diverse group of students is that they bring with them diverse perspectives, diverse experiences. We all benefit from hearing from those experiences and those learnings. And we extend our understanding of the world as a result. So the curriculum, the teaching, the education is informed by more and more perspectives, which I think is vital, looking ahead to the development of the young people that we are educating.
So what are the key aspects to successful education for the younger generation? Because it has all changed. It's more technology-based. I wouldn't say the education span is going down, but I would say that it has to be more and more interesting. So please share with us, what is the key to a successful education?
I think what we're trying to achieve with the students at Leeds Beckett University, and indeed with our partners such as Rushmore, are 2 things. First of all, we want students to understand the discipline of choice. We want them to understand the theoretical and the pure aspects of their degree programs. But we want them also to acquire learning in a different way. We want them to learn how to learn so that they've got the skills that they will need to employ year on year as their careers develop and as the world changes. We also want them to learn through a values perspective. We want them to approach their subjects and question their subjects through the prism of values. Values such as inclusivity and diversity. These are important frameworks for thinking which will allow our students to go forward and mature in their development as professionals in their chosen careers, with those skills safely developed in their early years as undergraduates and master students, and they'll keep with those skills and those values that inform their learning throughout the whole of their careers, we hope.
Equality, diversity, inclusion. you're giving a lot of importance to these three factors. Is there something wrong going on because we have to give more attention to these?
Well, I certainly think we are learning that we are all connected as a people. A lot of important things are going on in the world at the moment, whether it's environmental change. We're seeing sad pictures in Pakistan of floods, but on the other hand, we're seeing in Somalia and East Africa drought and all of the challenges there. We have COVID. We have war in Europe. And I think what we're learning is that we are all connected as a people, and therefore we need to invest in each other. And how are we going to invest unless we understand that there are a broad perspective of views and opinions? We need to understand each other's perspective. We need to appreciate the value of all the different perspectives that we all bring together. And we move forward as a society, one society, investing in each other. So I don't think it's the case that something's wrong. I think we're learning all the time the value of a diverse, inclusive perspective.
So we are learning as we go. From what I understand is, from what you just said, yes, it is all the theoretical aspect of it. Share with us what is being done practically to understand each other better and try to get more in depth into issues and hopefully finding a solution.
I'll give one very specific example, if I can then, Roshan, which is about how we are developing the curriculum in the UK and at Leeds Beckett University, among others. I think there was a time when the curriculum was developed from a very Anglo perspective, a white Anglo perspective, if I can say that. We are now appreciating that in our multicultural society in the UK, there are multiple perspectives. For example, on important issues like empire. We need to understand what empire meant for people of a broad base of backgrounds, and we need to reflect that in our curriculum. So what we're trying to do is diversify the curriculum so that we can embrace all of those broad perspectives and get a better understanding of how we all feel about important topics coming through our education.
You mentioned empire. Can you give a quick definition what it means? And
yeah, for sure. So we are looking at maybe our history syllabus or our English syllabus, and we're trying to portray back how we record our history. Traditionally, we would record that from a very Anglo-centric history. Britain achieved X, Y, and Z. How about turning that 180 degrees and looking at that history from the perspective of the countries that were part of the empire? Perhaps their perspective is different to the perspective that traditionally has been taught in the UK. I think we're sensitive more and more to that now, sensitive to wanting to understand a broad base of perspectives. We all learn from a broader understanding, a broader framework around which we can address important topics.
Well, Professor David, from what I understand, from what you just said, is you deal a lot with students from an undergrad, postgrad level. So I'm guessing it's around the late teens, 18, 19, 20 years, or older for other programs, or even older students who want to study additionally. But coming to the education, it starts us at a much younger age. Do you think that at school level or college level, is there something better that can be done and that is lacking at the moment, so that you can hopefully, without being disrespectful to the batch of people, of students that are coming to study now, but do you think that there's something can be done so that we can improve, if I can call it, the quality of students coming through to study at the university level?
Well, Rushai, I certainly agree that universities have their part to play in the development of students long before they reach 18 years old and they come to university. And it's in everybody's interest that students have learnt to learn so that when they start their degree programs, they're good to go and they can be successful. So some of the interventions that my colleagues at Leeds Beckett University will be doing and other universities in the UK will be doing is increasingly to work with teachers at schools, with students at 14 and 15 years old, and then more intensively at 16 and 17, to work with the teachers and with those students to broaden their range of learning experiences so that they are ready for higher degree, higher education study when they get to university.
Because it is a fact that so before moving to university, the way of teaching is very different.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is a gap to be bridged there also?
I think there are two gaps to be bridged. First, you're quite right. I think that you're right in saying that there is an educational change that happens between school and university. Classically, we would say at school, teachers really direct you towards your learning, whereas as an undergraduate, you have to look after yourself much more. So there is a change that students need to navigate when they move from school and college to university. But there's an important second gap as well. What we're finding is that it's at the younger age, at 13, 14, that many students lose the aspiration to go to university. So I think we have an important moral obligation to be working with that age group in schools, particularly that group from society which is less likely to come to university, and try and explain the value of university to them, get them engaged, to let them understand the potential that they have and how by pursuing their studies that they can achieve all that they want to achieve in life. We need to close the gap between those students who are from parts of society that traditionally do not go to higher education and those that do, and it's too late at 18. As you say, we have to be working with those students much younger in life, with their teachers at 13, 14, 15 years old.
So at 13, 14, 15, you start preparing them for university. So let's put a pin on that for 2 minutes. Let's go a little bit younger, to the younger generation, if I may, and if you allow me to move to the younger ones. From school to college, students are being spoon-fed in terms of education. So they are told exactly what they have to do, and then you have a gap. And in university, it's more about, it's an open education where you have to use, let's say, your critical thinking. But is it not too late then? Because you mentioned as from 13, 14, they lose the aspiration and inspiration. So I think it goes to a younger age. And this is, I think, where the real problem lies.
So I'm sure my colleagues teaching the primary school age students very young in life, 4 years old up to 11, would say that they're constantly innovating their pedagogy and their teaching practice. I'm no expert on that age group, but what I can say is that it's absolutely essential that that group learns to learn as well. When we think about the world of work and how society is changing and at pace, the one skill we must all acquire is the ability to continuously learn, because our world is changing rapidly around us. So the skills that are certainly needed at a very early age.
This is what I want to get to. This is what I want to get to, because we're doing changes from a structure that is already there. Don't you think we need to shake it and turn it 180 degrees and try to find a new? It's easier said than done, of course, but I want to know what you think. What would be your reaction to changing how the whole educational structure is at the moment, to having classes outside and trees how it used to be before, or where people would have, yes, you would have the theory, but you will also have the practical aspect, and help students visualize what they're learning, and at the same time enhance their creativity. I hope I'm getting through what I'm trying to explain.
Well, I certainly agree with some of the aspirations that you are articulating for students, young people from an early age. That ability to learn and to be creative in their thinking and to be able to expand their horizons through their education, in their knowledge, but also in their critical skills development as well. I think that's absolutely essential, and it's the perfect foundation for going on to be successful in university level studies in due course, because as you rightly point out, those are exactly the sorts of skills that you have to develop in order to be successful at the tertiary level. With regard to whether our current education system is meeting all of those needs and delivering on all of those aspirations for our current generation of young people, well, I suppose it's difficult to say. I'm sure there are examples of excellence, but also examples where the system isn't achieving all that it can. What's important from my perspective is that those of us who work in higher education are active in schools level education as well, both through our departments of education, but also through the work we do directly with teachers and with students to make sure we can share the expertise that we have with our colleagues and work with them so that collectively we can develop the best possible education experience for our young people.
I was about to ask you what is the future looking for Leeds Beckett University, and you partly answered this. So I will can you tell us what is the bigger picture for the next 5-10 years at the level of your university?
So Leeds Beckett is one of the UK's leading modern universities. There are sort of two characteristics to the education. The first is there's a very theoretical element to it. We want our students to understand the pure and the theoretical. But it's always been the case at Leeds Beckett that we focus on the vocational skills, the sorts of skills that students want to develop, or need to develop, I should say, in order to be successful in employment in the future. And I think that agenda will continue to grow. Students want to develop the sort of skills that will give them a competitive advantage in the labour market. I think we see that here in Mauritius when I learn about the motivations of students at Rushmore Business School and why they study for Leeds Beckett degrees here. It is because they want to develop those educational skills that go beyond the purely theoretical, but give them an advantage in the employment market.
Definitely. At the level of university, you're trying to meet with college students and try to explain how university works and try to prepare them. Right. I understand that university is doing what it can and exposing students to what's waiting ahead. What advice would you give to parents? Because I think at school, at university, is 50% of the work, but the other 50 is at home, what you do. And parents have a huge responsibility in this, maybe less at the level of university because they take care of it financially in many cases, but especially towards the end of college. What would you tell parents how to better prepare their kids for university?
I think you're absolutely spot on in emphasising the very important role that parents and family and friends play in the success of students. From the very start, when education is prioritised, families make huge sacrifices to help their children become students and study. There's something about developing a mindset among your children that allows them to approach their education broad-mindedly, prepared to accept a diversity of opinion. It's important that that ethos is reflected back in the family home as well, and parents do an excellent job in that regard in providing that framework, that intellectual framework, as well as the educational establishments, which is crucial to the development of students. When we celebrate the graduations on Saturday, I will make a point of thanking the parents and the friends of the students for their contribution, because they put a lot of emotional, financial and practical support into the development and education of their children as well. And without their contribution, the students wouldn't make the successes that they do. And we should recognise the important part they play.
But how would you increase the involvement of parents at that level, or any tips of what they could do better, or for parents who are not aware of what can be done, what would you tell them?
I think it's important that parents are involved, and I think as universities we have an obligation to explain how education works at higher education level to parents as well as students, so that they can be engaged, so that they can travel with their students as they develop intellectually. Clearly, by the time you reach early adulthood, students want some distance between themselves and their parents. What the parents can do is provide the context, that broad-minded, liberal context in which students can develop their intellect successfully and safely.
Oh, fantastic. I think we're moving, that this interview is going very fast, so I'll take the opportunity to ask you. Research and development, probably one of the most important aspects of a university, and this is what mainly prepares a person for the world of work, creativity. How is the university doing in that department?
Yeah, so research is absolutely essential to any university. All universities will, of course, give great emphasis to their research. At Leeds Beckett, our research performance is measured by the government, as is the case for all British universities, and in over 50% of the times, the British government has classified research at Leeds Beckett as either internationally outstanding or at least of an international level. The research itself is important, the development of ideas is essential, but there's a second element as well, and we've been talking a lot about students today, so I'm going to go back to students. It's important that that research refreshes the education that the students receive as well. It's not enough just to do research for research purposes. We try to blend that learning and have it reinforce and refresh the curriculum. The curriculum are currently continuously developing, and that's important for the students, so they get education that's at the cutting edge of new knowledge as it's being developed.
All right, we'll change a bit of topic now. Let's talk a little bit about costs. Every year we have X amount of students clearing their higher school certificate, and many of them go for higher studies. And statistics show that 5% of Mauritians study abroad, and a big majority of them come to the UK. And studying in the UK is becoming more and more expensive by the year. And can you tell us what's happening? Why is it the case? And because at some point, then, I mean, it's very hard to afford this kind of higher education.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I fully appreciate the extraordinary financial sacrifices that families make when students study in the UK. It's not a cheap country to live in or to study in either. And for that reason, studying in the UK will not always be the right option for everybody, although at Leeds Beckett we will have many thousands of international students, including Mauritians, come and study with us. One of the other options, of course, is the franchise agreement, which is the case for the students that I will meet at Saturday at Rushmore, where they study the British degree, the Leeds Beckett degree, but they do it here. It's one solution to tackling the cost of higher education in the UK. You still get the UK degree taught to you, but you get it taught here at home as opposed to going overseas. The cost is significant if you do go overseas, but you get the added value, I suppose, of the life experience,
Yes.
which is perhaps the different bit that you don't get if you educate through the franchise arrangement like the one we have at Rushmore.
Well, it's definitely much harder when you go there and you have to live on your own, and the costs are twice high. I mean, over and above the university fees, you have to cater for your living expenses and rent. But if I have to give a figure, whatever you pay if I had to study in the UK, and if I had to do the same course through one of, let's say at Rushmore, would it be 25% of what it costs, half the cost? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so it would be slightly different depending on which degree program it is. But
on a broader level,
you would be shaving half the cost off by studying in Mauritius as opposed to studying in the UK, and you would not be carrying all of the life costs as well of living, as you say, in an expensive context, and that can be at least as expensive again as the fee you pay for your degree.
Is it okay to study? Let's say I'm doing a 3-year degree. Is it okay to do 2 years in Mauritius and 1 year in the UK? Do you have that option?
Yeah, so that's often possible. That's called an articulation.
Okay.
One of the advantages of doing the Leeds Beckett degree here is that you're doing the same degree essentially as your compatriots in Leeds.
Okay.
And so if you do finish, let's say, the first year or the second year, often you can articulate out and complete in the study. So you have the option of sort of half and half.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing. Before concluding this interview, is there anything you would like to share with the listeners of Encounter?
Thank you, Rashan, because we've talked about some very important issues today, issues about trying to understand each other's perspectives and how we relay those perspectives into our education and into education of our young people. And these are essential topics for all of us globally as we look ahead.
So, Professor David, thank you very much for being with us for this recording of Encounter. All the best going forward as a Pro Vice Chancellor, and I wish you a long career and all the best at Leeds Beckett University. And to all our viewers of Encounter, thank you very much for being with us. If you have any questions or queries on the guest or topic that has just been discussed, you can drop an email. It's encounter@mbc.net.mu. Until the next program, goodbye.